What's good, Raider Nation? It's your boy, Mike A. Raider, coming to you with a review recap of the Raiders versus Cowgirls game from the other day. I'm not in Raider gear because I just did a video for my fantasy football league and my other channel. But we're going to talk, as we have done in the previous weeks, a little bit about the untold storylines that are coming out of this week's preseason game. Hence the clickbait title, Exposed. Raiders versus Cowboys, Untold Storylines. I only do that because it gets like 1,000 views. But hey, unfortunately, I don't got no editing content right now. I cannot go on my computer and show graphics. So you're just going to get me talking. But please consider hitting that thumbs up, that like, that subscribe button, supporting me to feel good for an amazing season of Raider fandom and Raider love, and we can get out of this negative, dark place that the entire world seems to be under. And things are looking up for the Raiders. So, let's get into some untold storylines from this week and the Raiders-Cowboys game review from my perspective. Well, a lot of the untold storylines that were not being really talked about, except by me, probably in a negative fashion, was Tyree Wilson. Tyree Wilson, again, I don't like the draft pick. Doesn't mean I'm not rooting for the guy. I just, at the time, I felt like I wanted Jalen Carter, and I wanted to go with another player that wasn't injured because I knew an injured player might take a long time to really get acclimated, maybe even a year or so. He can still get on the field, but until he's really acclimated from that injury, it's about a year and a half later, especially for a young player. But Tyree Wilson, and I was predicting, I didn't think he was actually going to get on the field until probably week 3 or 4 or 5, more around the 4 or 5 point, per all the reports that I heard about his injury. But he got on the practice field a few days ago before the Cowboys game. Then the general manager and his assistant, named after Champ Kelly. That scared me when I saw it. Said GM Champ Kelly talks. And then they were talking about Tyree Wilson, that he was in practice, and they gave a quote. It's on my Twitter timeline. I don't know verbatim what it said, but it said something about like he looks long, he looks mean, he looks powerful, but he needs to learn how to play at an NFL level from a technique standpoint. And I was like, what? You drafted a player that's injured, might not even get on the field his first year, and you're basically calling him a project that he learns how to play in the NFL from a technique standpoint? Sounds like a project. Hence Trey Lance and anybody else that I'm thinking about. That pissed me off. I was like, oh, you're putting this kid, this is wrong. But he got on the field versus the Cowboys game, and he was 50-50. He had some big plays where he pushed the offensive lineman back and got in the quarterback's face and hindered the play. And there was a couple of things where he took the wrong angle or he was long strided. But he is a tall, big boy. Sorry, let me see if I can get this camera just down a little bit. He's a tall, big boy. And man, he is a beast among men in terms of height and power and structure. So, yeah, I want this guy to learn and be a fast learner. And he can disrupt some things when he's on point. That being said, again, in my eyes, from watching a few videos and the game, he's 50-50. But maybe expectations are too high, especially because he was, our number 1 draft pick. And the comparisons against Jalen Carter are going to come from everywhere. And long story short, this guy's got potential. And he could be one of the dominant defensive linemen forever. But the reports are that he is going to coincide with Chandler Jones, meaning not in every down back or defensive lineman. And they're going to come in for plays. Sometimes they might be on the field together. Sometimes they might not, vice versa. So they're going to bring him in slowly, especially with the injury issue that he needs to develop. So it's going to be a slow ride, but there are going to be moments of brilliance with Tyree Wilson. He might not end up being the defensive rookie of the year, which we would all love. He might not be the best defensive edge rusher or lineman compared to Jalen Carter or maybe somebody else. But again, the potential for this dude is clearly through the roof. So the Raiders drafted on potential, regardless of the injury concerns and whatnot. So we have to give it up to them for that. But again, if I was a general manager, I would have done things a little bit differently. But hey, doesn't matter. I like Tyree Wilson. I like what he can do on the field, and I'm glad he's practicing, and he's going to start to come into his own. That was a beautiful sight. Now, the next untold storyline that I don't think a lot of people are talking about after the game or before the game is Brian Hoyer. Why didn't Brian Hoyer play? I mean, is he solidified the backup, even though he looked really bad in the last preseason game or the first two? Does he legitimately have the second backup spot? I would say that Aiden O'Connell, in my opinion, would have moved up to that backup spot. So, it was interesting that Aiden O'Connell started pretty much the entire 3/4 of the game. Then, Chase Garbage came in to finish the game. AOC starts. But what's the situation with Brian Hoyer? Maybe there is none. Maybe I'm reading tea leaves out of nothing. But with the praise and the pride that everybody and the excitement for Aiden O'Connell, I would have considered moving him up to second string with his play so far in the season. But I don't know. But the rumor was going into this game that they were not going to play any of their so-called starters. That's the rumor from the press, the reporters, and everything. So, that would indicate that Tyree Wilson is technically not a starter. That would indicate that Aiden O'Connell is not a starter. Brian Hoyer did not play. Does that make him a starter? Of course not. We got Jimmy G. But it possibly still makes Brian Hoyer a starter behind Jimmy G. Because they're going to save Jimmy G as best as possible for injury or whatever. And apparently they possibly saved Brian Hoyer as best as possible for whatever reason. Hence why they played Aiden O'Connell. That's my storyline. So we're going to find out all the players that are going to be released in the next day or two. And so let's move on from that Brian Hoyer storyline. Let's move on to the Aiden O'Connell storyline. This guy looks good, looks poised. He only had one touchdown in the game, but he took the ball down the field, and he played like a champ basically all 3 games in a row, showing he has a lot of talent. I sure would like to see him with the first string offensive line with Devontae Adams and stuff like that, but clearly that's not going to happen until the season unless he comes in for another quarterback. But this guy is handling all the pressure so far. Looks really good. He's getting comparisons to Tom Brady in the media, which I don't like, but it is going to happen because Josh McDaniels is our coach, and you know they want another Tom Brady. But we got a lot of faith in Aiden O'Connell. And let me know down below, should Aiden O'Connell be the starter day one for you guys? Do you want us to throw a rookie in there and see what he got for the future? Or do you want us to just roll along with Jimmy G and whoever? Let me know your honest thoughts. Now, I'm going to be honest with you guys. If I'm looking at it as I'm a general manager, not that I don't like Jimmy G or he's not a really good game manager that wins a lot of games in a good system. He is all of that and the above. I wanted them to draft a rookie quarterback in the first or second round and throw him to the fire. because to my mind, it's a rebuilding year and all that other stuff. And again, if we're going to move on from the other quarterback that I enjoyed and I was rooting for the best for, and we're going to get a rookie quarterback, let's go. Let's see what we got from day one. It might not work out, but we didn't draft a quarterback early. We got one in the 4th round that looks as good, if not better, than some of the first rounders we got. So, if I was the coach or GM with as good as Aiden O'Connell has looked, I might throw him in there as the starter. I probably would have released or never signed Jimmy G. Probably would have just trusted in Aiden O'Connell or whatever. But again, that's not a good plan. It's sort of me just throwing fire to the wolves, because if Aiden O'Connell didn't win a lot of games, then basically it's a tanking for possibly Caleb Williams, the next Patrick Mahomes. But I got to look back at this plan with Jimmy G, Brian Hoyer, and now Aiden O'Connell looking good, and I got to say, okay. Brian Hoyer is the veteran for this year behind Jimmy G to teach Aiden O'Connell and all the other players. But let's be honest, whatever happens to Jimmy G, depending on if we're winning a lot of games at that moment or we've lost a lot, if we're winning, they might throw in Brian Hoyer to win some more games. Maybe he's a 50-50 quarterback. He'll go 2-2 or whatever the situation may be. But if we're not winning a lot of games and the season is going downhill already and Jimmy G is injured, they can do whatever they want, and I think they'll throw Aiden O'Connell in there for the last whatever games there are to see what happens for the next season. Then they can draft another quarterback if they want, depending on where their draft value is. Then we would have those 2 quarterbacks basically, meaning probably Aiden O'Connell and whoever they drafted, in a camp competition. So it's an interesting storyline to think about. But for now, we got Jimmy G, we got Brian Hoyer, we got Aiden O'Connell, and it's looking good. But anything can happen, so it's going to be a fun, interesting season to watch. And of course, I'm rooting for Jimmy G. I want to get victories. I would love to somehow get into the playoffs. I would love to somehow go to the Super Bowl in Vegas. And if it's possible, I would like it to be against the Saints. Why not? That's a good storyline. All right, so the next untalked about storyline is Hunter Renfrow. We haven't talked about him for a while. He hasn't played in any of the preseason games that I know of. And a lot of people thought that because they brought in so many slot cornerbacks that Hunter Renfrow was going to be traded. Well, he still could be traded in the middle of the season. And there is a cap value or a dead cap value on him, even if he's traded. But again, we're not going to get into those specifics because I don't understand it. But with the way Trey Tucker looked, dropping some balls but having some decent plays, Hunter Renfrow is the better player at this point and has seen more. And even though they brought in a ton of slot wide receivers and they probably wanted to replace Hunter Renfrow somehow, maybe for next year, or which is still in the plan, possibly. But for right now, those trade rumors have got to be taken away. Hunter Renfrow, in my opinion, is better than Trey Tucker has shown this entire preseason. And he's more of a gadget player, and he learned a lot, and he can do a lot. They're going to put him in games here and there. But for pure value at the number 3, Hunter Renfrow is the stud. And he's still the stud until it's taken away, from my opinion. And Trey Tucker did not take it away from him. So, in my opinion, the trade talks have stopped. They need Hunter Renfrow, Jacoby Myers, and Devontae Adams to be their top trio, with all the others figuring it out as the season goes along. All right, the defensive storyline let's talk about. That's not being talked about. Our defense gave up a lot of points this game, but it was mainly probably second and third stringers and people that are really fighting to make the team because as the rumor said, they were not going to play any starters technically. So this defense, these players, you could tell they're on the bubble. That's why we gave up so many points to Will Grier, the quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys that will no longer be a part of the team. He was told before the game, and, because they picked up Trey Lance. So he went out there and played like a stud. And the Raiders tend to do that on many occasions, whether it be the first string, second, third, or fourth, or whatever. The Raiders tend to make non-name quarterbacks superstars. Will Grier looked like a superstar, cut up our defense here and there, made us look ridiculous. But against players that are basically on the roster bubble. So I didn't mind that they gave up a ton of points and lost the game. I didn't mind it, but I was hoping for a better performance, and I was hoping some of these players would have taken the coaching better. And again, it scares me going into the season that some of his game calls or his play calls on defense didn't fit the narrative, regardless of the player's talent. And because there was a couple of players for the Cowboys wide open, whether it be a tight end, a running back, or Will Grier running the ball through the entire line. I know they didn't plan for it, but again, that's a coach's problem. I see it more as a player's problem in this game, but I hope it's not a coach's problem, meaning an extension of the ridiculous game planning and preparation by Patrick Graham. Hey, it's just preseason. Shut up, Mikey. I will. That's my storylines that are kind of untold and not talked about. Then, this one's talked about, but Josh Jacobs is back. He got an $11.8 one-year contract that forgoes the tag for this year. It's $11.8 million. He basically added $1.7 million to his bank account as a signing bonus. And there's $200K in incentives. So it's a total worth up to $12 million, but it's pretty much 11.8. It's not guaranteed, guys. Remember, it's not guaranteed. It's per game check, which is going to be around $700,000. The game check. The game check before was $588,000. Now it's somewhere close to $700,000 a game check per game. So it's not guaranteed. That's what he was looking for like 20, 30 million guaranteed or something like that. But he increased his wealth by close to 2 million, possibly 1.8, I believe it was, or 1.7. And he took his game checks from 588,000 to close to 700,000 a game. That is good business, even though he was handcuffed by all the results. They had all the power with the franchise tag and all that. And I don't know whether they were asking for it or not, but the second year tag for next year, the Raiders still control it, and they can use it against Josh Jacobs next year again. So there's a possibility we could be in this predicament again next year. I don't know why Josh Jacobs and his agent couldn't get the Raiders to take away the second year tag with this new contract, but they didn't. So, long story short, Jacobs got some extra money, made bigger game checks, and he's motivated to play for at least the early games, unless we're losing a lot. Then if we're losing a lot, hey, maybe I pulled my hamstring, or I just want to relax for a little bit, continue to get those game checks, $700K, and then, waste out the rest of the season. I don't think Jacobs is a guy that'll do that. I think his integrity is too big, too much pride. But that's the situation. We could be in another tag year next year with situation that's happening like it is right now. But next year's tag, if this year's tag was 10.1, because he got a bigger value on his contract, next year's tag might have been like 10.7 or 11 or 12. I don't know the numbers, but let's say it was 11 or 12. If they tagged him next year, he would get more money than the tag this year. But now that he signed a bigger contract, that'll raise his tag value up a little bit for next year. So if they tag him, if he was originally going to get on the second tag 11 or 12 million, if they tag him for the next year, he's probably going to get 13 or 14 million, depending on the money value. So he increased his value at every step of the turn with this contract. So he got something. Raiders got something. They both gave something. Long story short, they met in the middle. He's going to be on the field, and I'm proud. I'm the biggest Josh Jacobs fan there is. That's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it. Now, the Raiders lost. I forget the final score. The Raiders have scored more than like 34 points to each of the first two games. Forgive me, guys. I was a little sleepy when I was watching the replay late last night. But I forget the final score. It'll be on the screen or in the thumbnail. But the Raiders had a good game. And we played a good team. And I'm kind of okay with losing. It doesn't bother me. I want them to feel that bad taste so they can all improve. So, that being said, I'm not going to get into all the details because we're talking about the storylines. So now the storyline that is going to creep up in the next day or two, hopefully I'll have another video, is who will be cut. Well, I don't have a big familiarity on every single player that's on the roster because I haven't really been going all in due to my health and other issues or like other video makers have. But from my knowledge, what are some of the big names that might possibly be cut? They just released or cut Brandon Parker, off of an injury. And Raider Nation was like, finally. I didn't see that coming. That was interesting to me. But if any names pop out into my head right now that are bigger names that could be cut or released, I mean, could they cut Amik Robinson? I mean, he's been on the bubble for years, and he was playing with the third stringers last night. I saw him at times like in the third quarter, so I think that's the third stringers. So that's one possible name for me, but I don't think it'll happen. He's too good of a player. And again, I don't know all the players' names from that standpoint. You know, I can't remember all the draft picks. Byron Young looked decent. So I apologize, guys, if you want more information on that. But I'm just throwing out some names that I saw on the field and kind of interesting concepts, if you know what I'm saying. So let's be honest, Chase Garbers will be released or cut. I was thinking about Amik Robinson. The offensive linemen, again, there was too many to name. A lot of them will be cut. But in terms of the big names, there's not a lot of them on the Raiders, you know, like on defense or in a backup role on offense. Yeah. Sorry, guys, that's all I got is Amik Robinson, possibly. I don't think it's going to happen. I hope it doesn't happen. I like the kid. And Chase Garbers. You guys let me know who you think will be cut if this video comes out before the information comes out. Let me know what you're thinking. I'd really like to know. All right, guys, that's it for now. I appreciate you all. I love you. And I just want to let everybody know, if you're interested in playing fantasy football against me, I am going to have a link in every week video for my FanDuel League, where you can sign up to FanDuel. It's free. Follow my link, join the league, and then every week we're going to have a contest for about $5 where you play against 5 or 6 other players for like a prize pool of like $25 or $20. And you play against 5 players, and the league has to fill up every week. So I'm only going to put it to like 6 players. But if you want to play every week against me in that league for $5, consider joining FanDuel. And every week I'll put the link down below. Follow it and join it. And, you know, sign up for FanDuel. It's free. Become a part of that league. And then every week, just look for the link in your membership or your league pages on FanDuel.com. That's it for now. I love you guys. And again, if you want to be a FanDuel member, play me every week in fantasy football, consider hitting the FanDuel link. Plus, real quickly, this week, I'm going to go live with my Raider Central Live Leagues. I have 2 of them. And I'm going to do the draft with those members that have been a part of the league for about 5 years now. And we're going to do that draft live this Saturday night. And we'll be talking Raiders while we do it. So consider joining us, getting some beers, hanging out, watching us draft our teams, and talking Raiders in the chat room, man. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys. Go Raiders. And I'm kind of excited for this season. And I don't want to give Josh McDaniels any credit because I still consider the guy a snake and a psychological a-hole. But I can kind of see what he's trying to build. Although I hate that the Patriot name is involved with it. And then the last storyline that I just quickly want to talk about because I'm pissed the F off. Tom Brady was hanging out with Mark Davis at the Cowboys Stadium the other day. That's right, Tom Brady was there. He's really going to be the minority owner. So we got to expect to see Tom Brady at a lot of games, hanging out, bringing that nastiness that he has. But again, they could say he's nasty with getting victories. So I hope that rubs off on the Raiders. I'm still a Tom Brady hater, but I love the victories he's got. That's just my honest opinion. Mikey Raider, hit that thumbs up, that like, that subscribe button. Thank you for tuning in. God bless you, and I'll see you on the next video.